In this video, I'll show you how to set up Sugar Bytes Factory with Velocity Keyboard. The first thing I'm going to do is get Factory running as an audio unit. You can run it standalone too, but it will be easier for us to see both of them side by side if we do it this way. And get Velocity Keyboard started up as a MIDI processor effect. So I've got Velocity Keyboard arranged so that it doesn't take up too much of the screen. Actually, that's still a little more than I want it to take up. I'm going to narrow it down a bit. Okay. And let's get Factory opened up, and I want to set Velocity Keyboard as a MIDI input source, and let's make sure we're getting something. Right, so we are. The next thing we need to check is the MIDI bend range. Need to make sure that we have a working setting for that. I've got bend range set to 48 semitones, which is almost certainly too much for this synth. You see it's not, it doesn't appear to be bending at all. It's going to take us up a few octaves, so it'll be easier to hear that. So the reason it's not bending is that this synth has a low bend range set, and usually we can find what the bend range is just by guessing. There are 3 or 4 possibilities. So most synths will have the bend range set at 2, 12, 24, or 48. I can hear this one is really low, so I'm going to start with 2, and I'll just check it by sliding up to a note and then playing the same note, and you can hear when I slide from G to A, I do indeed get the A. So that's the correct bend range. Now the next thing I want to do is set up velocity sensing. So I can do velocity sensing really in any patch. We can do it right here in this one. I think this one hangs on. The cutoff is longer than I'd like it to be. Let's just take the release down. Sure, that'll work. Wow, there's still a lot of reverb. Let's take this down. Let's take the reverb down in the mix and cut the size. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is velocity sensing. And there are a few different ways you can do this in this synth. One of them is if you're in the articulation tab, there's a knob here which says gate velocity curve. I'm not sure why it's labeled that way. I'm also not completely sure I understand what this knob is doing, but if you move it around, you will find positions where the velocity response makes more sense. So if it's initially like this, I don't get much response from this. I don't really hear any difference when I press harder or softer. But if I move it somewhere on the left side here, now I'm hearing a response. It's not quite what I was looking for. Let me try it up here. That sounds good. Let's check here and make sure that I'm not limiting the velocity output range, and I'm not. I've got it at the full range. Okay. So it sounds like this velocity adjustment is mainly adjusting the volume of the sound, which is okay. I mean, often that's what we want when we're doing velocity, but there are some more musical ways of doing it. If you just want to take any patch in Factory and quickly get velocity sensing, this articulation velocity adjustment is the fastest way to do it. But I'm going to turn that off because that's not my preferred way of doing it. Another way of doing it that sounds better to my ears is take velocity as an input on the, what do you call this matrix? Modulation matrix. And then we'll take filter cutoff. Oh, we have it already. Sorry, I was going to add it in a new tab, but it's already there over here. Take filter cutoff and use velocity to modulate. So I'm touching this square and then I'm dragging up to 100%. It's showing the percentage here. Okay. So now this blue dot indicates that velocity is modulating the filter cutoff at 100%. Let's listen to that. That doesn't sound like much. I'm going to turn off this part of the cutoff modulation and see if that makes a difference. I don't hear anything at all. This is what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear this going down. Oh, okay. Now I've got it. For some reason with this up at the top, it doesn't respond very well to that. So I'll take this knob down and now we hear it. So there's low velocity. And as I'm hitting harder, then it is indeed increasing the cutoff frequency. I don't really like the way that feels. It feels like it's not sensitive enough at the low end. So that might be because of the velocity response curve I have. I'm going to take this to the center and see what happens there. You hear that? It switches really quickly from very choked to wide open. You can see the blue line, it's jumping from here to here without anything in between. Maybe over here? This is working better with this curve on the right side. So that's more than I need. I think we'll take it down a little bit. That sounds good. I'll take the sensitivity up a little higher too. I'm just checking to see if this is responding to MPE, and it sounds like it's not, which means I can't bend two different directions at the same time. I have to bend together. So it looks like that's enough to make good use of this patch. Let's try another patch just for good measure and see what other settings we might dig up. This one sounds like it's doing a pretty good job of responding to velocity already as it is. I'm going to take that release time down just a little bit. Take the reverb down a bit. Okay. Let's have a look at what's going on here. So we've got a velocity curve going on here, and that's what's making the differences that you're hearing as I press harder or softer. And that sounds pretty good. Let's do the same thing again though. Let's take the velocity as an input and send it to the filter cutoff. I think what I'm getting now is there's actually there's too much velocity sensitivity, meaning that when I'm playing softly, you're not hearing anything at all. So I might be able to fix that by disabling this part of the velocity sensing. Let's see what happens there. Yeah, that works pretty well. The other option I have is I could leave that where it was to get a wide sensitivity. I'm going to turn this down. But then I could limit the lower velocity output range. So instead of outputting values from 0 all the way up to the max value, I could just increase this slider. And what this is doing is it's preventing Velocity Keyboard from outputting the lowest numbers near 0. I don't like that because I'm having to press really hard to get the loudest notes out. I must have something wrong here. Let me try this. Yeah. This seemed to help, taking this curve down. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of our tutorial on how to set up velocity sensing in Velocity Keyboard and Factory. Let's just do a quick check to make sure this is sounding okay when I play something that uses more strings. Let's use a full set of 6 strings. Yeah, that's pretty good.